What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to talk about rulings. We need to talk about rules and regulations and all things along those lines when it comes to the One Piece TCG. Because we've got the Starter Deck 21 FAQ. It is a starter deck, it's a little bit low, but we need to talk about this. And we also need to have a little bit of a look at an Errata which has come down from OP-09, which is actually pretty important. We'll get to there in a minute. First of all, let's start off with the Starter Deck 21 FAQ. Starting off with the new Sanji. Now, Sanji has got a nice little skill here, whereby on play, you may choose one of your 6,000 power or higher Straw Hat characters, and they become unblockable during this turn. So, obviously, if you've got one you can attack with multiple times, that sounds pretty good. Well, after the attack of the character selected with Sanji's skill attacks, if another character or leader attacks, can my opponent activate blocker? Yeah, of course they can. It just stops this one character being blocked. And if we have a look at the wording here, this isn't in the FAQ, but it doesn't say this attack, it says this turn. It literally says, during this turn, the chosen character, if they attack, blocker can't be activated. What that means is that if you've got a character who can attack multiple times, then yes, you absolutely can go ahead and have it unblocked multiple times. And I know it's a different color, but I do just need to give a shout out here to the Roronoa Zoro that came around in OP-06, because sure, it's a green character rather than a red character like Sanji. However, remember that's a card that can attack, and then when attacking you can pay 1 to set to active, and then you got an activate main to pay 2 to set it to active, so you could potentially use Sanji to make this one unblockable and then attack 3 times in a row, as an example. So no, your other characters don't become unblockable, it's just the one that's chosen, but if you can attack multiple times, and the Zoro from OP-06 is a Straw Hat crew with a cost of 6,000 or more, it's a 9k, then yeah, that absolutely works here. As another little side note, if you've got a character with less than 6,000 power, but you boost it up using Don or other skills, yes, they can be chosen by Sanji. It's not in the FAQ, but it doesn't need to be. Compare this to something like Frankie, for instance, from the starter deck, which gives a 4,000 boost to characters with an original power of 4,000 or less. You couldn't, for instance, lower their power in order to get it the skill from Frankie. I don't know why you'd want to, it's just an example. But that refers specifically to original power. Sanji here is just 6k. So yes, if you can attack multiple times, you unblocked all of those times, it is for the turn. Yes, if you've boosted up to 6,000, you can be chosen, because it doesn't say original power. The actual ruling in the FAQ is, can I attack with other characters and be unblockable? No, your opponent can block. But these other rulings here, it's all to do with just the wording on the card, but I thought there's a lot of people probably wanting clarification on that, so it was worth a discussion. Now, maybe the best card in the deck is Roronoa Zoro. Roronoa Zoro's got a skill. Now, firstly, Don X2, it gains Rush, yay! But more importantly, when KO'd, you can play a 6,000 power or less red character from your hand other than Roronoa Zoro. So the question is, what about other Zoro cards? Like, we all know you can't play this Zoro, but how about the OP-01 Zoro? Which is actually really important, because remember the OP-01 Zoro's got Rush. It's pretty good. So, yeah. It's got 6,000 power or less. Got Rush. Cool card. Can I play that? No. When it says other than Roronoa Zoro here, it is not referring to this particular card. It is referring to any card that is named Roronoa Zoro. It is referring to generally the character Roronoa Zoro rather than specifically another copy of this card. It stops all Roronoa Zoro. Maybe there'll be more Roronoa Zoro in the future that are even better than this. I don't know. But it's important to note that it is all Roronoa Zoro that are stopped here. That is very important. There is another question about Roronoa Zoro. What if during my opponent's last turn, I use this KO effect to play Yasopp? Red character, 6,000 power or less. On play, one of your leaders gains 1,000 power until the end of the opponent's next turn. And Don X1, when attacking, give one of your opponent's characters minus 1,000 power during this turn. But in terms of that first skill, what do we mean? We use Zoro gets KO'd on your opponent's turn, you play Yasopp. Well, when it says the end of my opponent's next turn, does that mean they get minus 1,000 power for this turn, and my next turn, and their next turn? No. It just means until the end of the opponent's current turn. Obviously, Yasopp is a card whereby we're generally expecting that you play it on your turn, and then that minus 1,000 is for your turn, and then your opponent's next turn. But obviously with Roronoa Zoro here, you could actually play Yasopp on your opponent's turn. You don't then essentially get 3 turns of minus power. It would be nice if you did, but no. you don't get the extra boost. It is just for the remainder of this turn. Which I still think kind of goes against what the card actually says. But hey-ho, that's not the way it works. The other one we've got here is Gum Gum Mole Gun. This has got activate main, well, just a main really. Up to one of your opponent's characters loses 5k during this turn, and then if you've got a 6,000 power or higher character, you KO a 2k or less. Does the same thing incidentally as a trigger. And the question is an obvious question, but we need to ask it. Can I choose 2 different characters, or do they have to be the same? Can I pick the same? The answer is it doesn't matter. Now, in the FAQ, it is specifically, can I choose 2 different characters? Yes, you can. But you could also choose the same. A lot of the time, what you're often going to want to do with Gum Gum Mole Gun is take a 7k, bring it down to a 2k, and then KO it straight away. But there might be a 2k that you want to KO, but then say there's a 7k blocker, or an 8k blocker, or whatever, and you KO one of your opponent's characters while bringing their big blocker down by 5k, such that they're now not able to actually block, and you get to ruin their blocker while KOing another character all at the same time? Yeah, you totally can. That totally works. So there's your FAQ for Starter Deck 21, but there has been a new Errata issued for OP-09 and we need to have a little bit of a look at. And it is for Special Muggy Ball. Now this is a 2 cost that actually reads, as a main, return up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 6 or less to the owner's hand. It should read, your opponent chooses one of their characters with a cost of 6 or less and returns it to the owner's hand. Although, surely it should say characters and returns. It shouldn't say your opponent chooses one of their character with a cost of 6 or less and return to the owner's hand. That seems badly phrased. Am I being weird here? Seems like the phrasing's off on that one. But regardless, very important to note, it is your opponent's choice. That's the big difference here with the Errata on Special Muggy Ball. The way it's written basically says you get to choose the character. It should say your opponent chooses one of their characters. And this obviously makes a huge, huge difference to the card. Because if I get to choose, I'm going to choose my opponent's most useful character to try and inconvenience them as much as physically possible. But if my opponent gets to choose, they're going to choose their least useful character to inconvenience themselves as little as humanly possible. So yeah, that's a gigantic difference, honestly. An absolutely gigantic difference. This card, it's actually a lot worse now. The Errata does power down the card quite a bit. I'm sorry for that. But you need to know this because the way the card's written, It basically says you can return it, but the errata unfortunately makes it so your opponent gets the choice. Having said that, if we look at the trigger's got that same wording, return up to one character of a cost of 3 or less to the owner's hand. That has not been errated. So presumably it means that when it comes to the trigger here, which is a 3 cost, not a 6 cost, big difference, but you do get the choice here. That is quite important. And obviously, first thing I did when I saw this, I went and had a look at the wording of the Japanese card, because that's very important. And yeah, this was mistranslated, is the honest answer. It's very important. And if you look at the card here, you don't need to be able to read Japanese. Look at the English card quickly. The English card, both sentences start with return up to one of your opponent's characters, right? Whereas if you look at the Japanese card, even if you speak or read no Japanese, you can see that they're not written in the same way. The trigger here basically says up to 1 3 cost or lower character return to the owner's hand, whereas the main literally says your opponent, one of their 6 cost or lower characters, they return to their hand. So it's very much, the Japanese card does make it clear that it is your opponent's choice as to which character goes back to their hand, whereas the way the English card is written, it's written as if you get the choice. Trigger, Japanese, and English, you get the choice, but there was a mistranslation here on Special Muggy Ball. It has now been fixed with an errata. Although the card as printed won't say that, so make sure you know when going to tournaments. So there we go. That's what you need to know. We got the FAQ from Starter Deck 21. We've got an errata. And now it's over to you guys. Tell me what you think about all of this in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk about One Piece and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wasi Plays.